Hello and welcome into Behind the Plate with Coach T. I'm the baseball voice of the Hoyas, Jeremy Huber, joined as always by Georgetown head coach Edwin Thompson. Coach T, how you doing today?
Doing great. It's always good to see you. Look forward to getting back home and seeing you this weekend. So been on the road a little bit. So glad to have you back home. Glad to be back home as well as our team.
The big series against UConn coming up. A lot of big series coming up for your Hoyas. We'll talk about that as we progress in the show today. But one thing I think we've talked about before, T, and I think you've agreed with me, is that this year's team has done a really good job of, quote unquote, taking care of business. We know that college baseball, everybody's good. Everybody has older kids. It can be tough. But it feels like your team this year has done a great job of games that probably they should win. They have won this year. Where does that consistency come from for the 2024 version of the Hoyas?
I think it's just been our leadership. Our guys that are in our program. We've established that winning series, winning weeks. That's kind of how we approach every game. Is just try to be 1-0 today, and if win the week. If we play 4 games, 5 games, whatever that may be. We've been pretty fortunate to do that for a while, the last few weeks anyway. So just our guys have taken ownership in that. I think as a coach, sometimes you want to step back and just let them play. And I try to manage and get out of their way the most I can. And when we have great leadership, it allows guys to not look too far ahead or, look just right at the game that's in front of us. So I think that's been the best in approaching it that way, no matter who we play.
T, what are some personal highlights for you from the first really 3 quarters of the regular season?
We got a lot. I think you look at our season and our first weekend, I think just getting out there and playing against, 3 really good teams and just seeing, kind of where we're at. And obviously we came up short as far as that. But I think, that VMI weekend, I think that's one weekend that we kind of turned the corner as a team. And they had we were 1-4, 1-5, whatever we were. And it kind of was like, it wasn't like must win, but it was kind of felt like we just got to play better. And it was one of those things we've been talking about our team and what we can do, what's possible, but just trying to get them to get that. And they kind of bought in and did that, obviously, starting off our conference, but Ohio State beating Maryland, winning, going 4-2 against the Big Ten so far this year. And, really just our start to our conference season. I mean, you can't ask for a better start, other than the one game with the guy dominated us in Seton Hall. But I just think I like how consistent we've been. I think that's my highlight is week to week, game to game. We've been very consistent. And so we've been in most games. We've had, some games here or there. We haven't had a chance to win, but for the most part, we've been pretty competitive no matter who we play.
T, one of your big credos is dream big. Now, obviously, coaches say, hey, the ultimate goal is get to Omaha and win it. But I would think there's got to be some stacking of maybe smaller goals on the way to that. How do you kind of go about setting goals for your teams?
Yeah, I think, the goals are always simple. For us, we look at game by game, week by week. And we just try to talk, like I said, have a winning week. If you have a winning week over the course of 14 weeks, you're going to be in postseason. You're going to have a chance to be in position to have a championship. Obviously our goals are always qualify for our conference tournament. And once you qualify, have a chance to win a regular season championship. Those are always going to be our goals. Once you get in the conference championship, the goal is to get to playing on championship Sunday or Saturday. Once you get to that point, try to get to regional. And it's just steps, right? There's steps, but you can't focus on getting to Omaha without getting to the conference tournament, or winning a conference championship. So you just have to kind of really go slow. And each regular season is all guaranteed, right? We have 56 games, 54 games, whatever it is. That's guaranteed in our schedule. Everything else postseason is always earned. And I think that's life. You have to earn things. And so the more that we can get our guys to buy into that component, which they have, our goals work themselves out, right? Internal goals. So that's really the goals that we have, is just to play our best baseball when it matters the most towards the end of the year.
Edwin, getting into some bigger team questions, how do you rate your team's defense this year?
I know statistically it may not look great, but I think when we need to make big plays, we have. I think we're, top 5 in the country in double plays turned. So we have that belief in our guys that we can turn double plays. And I think we've had good outfield defense. Our catchers, we've had some errors that we had some games where we had 8 errors. I mean, that's we had nothing. That's not going to help the fielding percentage when you basically one game covers 8 games essentially, so of errors. So I think it's all relative. I think I look at it how we're playing in conference. We're playing pretty consistent level of defense overall. We've had some really plus plays, but I think the routine plays for the most part we've been really consistent. So we kind of know what our pitchers can kind of go out there and just pitch a little bit and have a little trust in the defense. So that's been a blessing.
T, you lead me into my next question. You talk about a pitching staff that has done great. You're up on top of the Big East statistical standings, and it's even crazier because you lose such a talent in Jake Bloss, the guy that kind of anchored that staff last year. And this year's group might be better. Where has the staff kind of gotten better, and what is it doing better this year?
Well, I think, you can't replace Jake Bloss. I mean, he's a type of talent that we had that we're fortunate to have for a year. And obviously he was one of the best in the country. So that part you don't replace. It's kind of like the old Moneyball analogy where you try to add pieces that can help to give what his statistical numbers were, right? And you add some depth. You create new roles for guys. And I think once you do that, guys really get into those roles. They buy into those roles, and they have success. And our Coach Cape and Coach Mo have done a phenomenal job with control and getting the pitchers to be prepared every day. And the pitchers have done a good job of executing, right? It's always, as a pitching coach, it's never what pitches call. It's all what, the execution of that pitch. And so, but I think the work, the details, I think just overall guys have really bought into their roles, and whether it's been a bigger role than they had last year or a smaller role or a bigger role than they've ever been. So at least I think that part of it's really been fun to watch.
Coach, talking about roles, Cody Bowker was a guy that was going to lead the way for you guys on the pitching staff, got injured, has come back. How important is it getting Cody back into that rotation?
It's huge. I think, again, he's preseason pitcher of the year and had some success last year, been in the Big East games, been in the Big East tournament. So, when you lose a guy like that, I think that really allowed our team, our bullpen, and some other guys to really have some opportunities that they may not would have had, just because his innings would have been what they would have been. And those innings that he missed, other guys had to fill them, and they've done a great job of filling those roles. But to get a guy like that back, I mean, it's like, it's a shot of life, right? Like knowing that we have, going back into this weekend to get him back in a full strength situation is really comforting. But at the same time, to know that we have guys that have been pitching well in a good pattern, in a good routine. So it allows us to strengthen up our team a little bit.
Coach, a guy a little bit like Cody last year, a two-way player for you, Andrew Citron, and like Bowker has kind of gone more to the mound this year, and he has been phenomenal on the hill for you. What kind of precipitated that switch to full-time pitcher for Andrew?
I think, he pitched for one of the best high schools in the country, Harvard Westlake. He was a closer. So when you talk about that from the starting point, he's on, guys that have multiple players in the big leagues in their high school program. So he pitched in some high level games, some high intensity situations. I think it just came down to where was the best fit for me on the field, to be honest. And I think his bat was a little bit lighter than some of the guys we had in the outfield this year. And we made the decision that, hey, if you go all time pitching, you have a better chance to get out there a lot more consistently than you would as a hitter and as a competitor. You just want to get out there and play. And I think that's kind of how that shook out. And he's taken into that role, and he's really embraced it. He's gotten better, and give him a lot of credit.
Coach T, let's switch over to the offensive side at the plate, where Josh rolling a ridiculously good series against Butler, wins Big East Player of the Week, 727 average, 8 hits, 2 doubles, 5 walks, 5 RBI. What does he bring to the table for your squad?
Yeah, he gets on base. I think that's he was hurt a little bit, had some injuries, but he's able to. He's just so talented with the bat, the ball skills. It's really, really advanced. He has more walks and strikeouts, and he, when he need a 2-out hit, he can get a bunt down. He can hit a home run. He's very versatile. As a player, being from the West Coast, he got that versatility, which a lot of hitters sometimes in the East Coast don't have. But I think just his overall presence and his confidence in himself, and he knows who he is, and he knows kind of what he can do to the table. So it's been fun to see his growth. He's been a career 200 whatever hitter, 200 plus hitter. Now he's in the 300s, and it's just he's seeing the ball really well. He's not getting himself out, right? What good hitters do. So he's swinging the bat well, and we're grateful for his contribution.
Edwin, you kind of mentioned it earlier in our show that sometimes opportunities can open. With Cody Bowker, his injury opens some doors for some folks. I think Ashton Gillio, a little bit similar, where Josh Rowling, some others guys got banged up. Gillio gets in, and boy, he's kind of kicked the door in lately with some multi-hit games. We knew coming in he had some ridiculous stats in Colorado as a high schooler. How's he been able to kind of translate that to the college game?
Yeah, I think, Derek Smith got hurt, and some other guys got hurt. So kind of we had to reevaluate some things, and he's been able to jump in there. Early on he was playing a little bit, and he wasn't, starting. When he did start, he kind of overthought the situation. He even come off the bench sometimes. We would kind of manage his at bats to keep him in a good place. I think that's sometimes part of a freshman is just letting them not get too high, not get too low, kind of get them hungry to get out there again. And I think once you allow that natural transition from high school to college to be able to transition into that everyday player, which he's kind of slowly getting to that point. It's great to see him have success. He's got confidence, and then sometimes, like anything, freshmen are just kind of they're aloof to what's going on. They just go out there and just compete, and that's kind of what he did. Obviously in high school, hitting 700 in high school or whatever it was, but just his ability to put the bat on the ball pretty consistent and get on base. And he's playing good defense as well. So it allows us to have another option in our current lineup, and ultimately will strengthen our team as we go.
Edwin, another guy who's really come on as of late, Joe Hollerback, the grad transfer from Cornell. And I had to go look up the stats, but when you guys faced them a few years ago, single-handedly almost beat you guys. So again, he showed what he could do that day, but a little bit of a step up, Ivy, to the Big East. Did he need a little time to get that consistency to take that step up in class?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, that game was one of the reasons he's here, because we're like, he did it against us. We know that he's capable of competing at our level, and so I think his start was probably slower than he probably wanted, but not because he wasn't a good player, just because, again, transitioning to the level of competition, our non-conference schedule was extremely difficult. So all those things kind of factored into a little slower start. But once he kind of got himself into a good rhythm, he's probably since moved into the DH, he's been really consistent. With some really good games, and it's hard to DH. So to get a guy that kind of has embraced that role and is okay with going out there and just hitting, some guys can't do it, but it's been fun to watch him overcome that transition from starting every day at third to DH as it looks right now. So really good to see him have success, and yeah, he's got a good spirit about him. And, but yeah, there's always a little bit of transition period, which he had early in the year, and got that out of the way. Now we just go and play baseball.
Edwin, let's kind of look at the Big East. So many good teams, and really going to be a fun race down the stretch. And it's funny, there aren't really pennant races in college baseball because of the way things are set up. But in the Big East, unlike some conferences, I know when you were at Eastern Kentucky, a few more teams, major conference tournament, there's just 4 in the Big East. So those spots are coveted, and some good teams get left out. Does that make it for a little extra juice coming down the stretch where hey, every game's going to be pivotal?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, every win is valuable. Every win is such a huge deal. I mean, you look at the last 2 years, we've had to win our last weekend just to get in, to get our 10th win. And so we know that number is going to be higher this year for the team to get in. Obviously, we're in first place, and UConn's in second place. But you look at our league, our league is a 5th RPI league, 6th RPI league in the country. You got, ourselves and, Xavier, Creighton, UConn, and St. John's are all in the top 50 in RPI or whatever it is. Like you're talking about facing some really good team down the stretch, 2 at home, 2 on the road. I think if you worry about all that stuff, it's just too much to think about. It's all we can focus on is playing UConn. And we know that that's going to be the last 2 years. We've had competitive games and kind of competitive series. We've won a series that they beat us a series. And so we know that that's going to come down to who plays better on that weekend and that day. So it's a lot of fun, to be honest. I think you want to be in those environments. You want to be, as a coach, as a competitor, to have a chance to be playing for postseason. And that's what we're going to have a chance to do, knowing that. And so each weekend is such a huge deal. So just got to go out there and play good baseball and then compete at the highest level we possibly can.
T, wanted to quickly ask you about this weekend series against UConn. We know the spectacular, surprising series that kind of put you guys on the national map 2 years ago, where you sweep the Huskies. And honestly, I remember after the game, just the look on Coach Pender's face and some of the kids, I think that might have spurred them on to almost making the College World Series that year. So I hope he's thanked you for that after the fact. But when you talk about them, I know you're from up that way. You got some kids from up that way, and they've kind of been the bully of the block, if you will. Obviously, tip your hat to Xavier the last couple of years too. But how important and what type of series, how fun is it to play in a series like that where you get to test yourself against the very best?
Yeah, I mean, they've won 3 years in a row, the regular season championship. They've been to 5 regionals. They've been to super regional the last few years. They are the pinnacle in our league as far as consistency goes. But we're 4-2 against them the last 2 years. We swept them in 22 and they beat us. The series last year we got one out of them and on the road, and we know it's going to be one of those series. We played them 3 times in the conference tournament. We know they know us. We know them. Their teams are veteran. Our team's veteran. It really comes down to just enjoying the moment, and I think that's kind of what is exciting. But there's an old saying Ric Flair would say in order to be the man, you got to beat the man, right? And at the end of the day, for us to take that next step in our program, we got to do that consistently, in our regular season of the team that we're like UConn, and ultimately get in the postseason. So those are things that we're, as a competitor, as a coach, you look forward to it. Every game's important. When you have a chance to play UConn at home, we have alumni weekend coming up and a lot of great activities. So it's going to be a great atmosphere at Capital One. Weather looks pretty good. So, I'm just excited for our kids to have that opportunity to be in that environment, to go out there and compete and have a chance to show what we're capable of doing.
Winding it down, Coach, we know how important those end of season series can be, especially for you guys this year. A lot of the teams that are right around the top of the standings up on your schedule coming down the stretch. How do you approach your philosophy when it comes to midweek games during this crucial crunch time where you have all these important conference series at end of weeks?
Well, every game's important. And I think, we're trying to win every game that we possibly can. We know that we have a good resume and all those different things. And we don't want to look too far ahead, but we want to put ourselves in the best situation, have the best possible season as possible. And that comes down to winning games in the weekend, and obviously winning games in the midweek in our non-conference. We've done a good job of our midweek games for the most part. Those games are just as important because we don't take games off and be like, we're going to rest our starters and we're going to do that. Obviously, the midweek is about hitting. It's about free bases. The teams that do that, those are the ones that will have more success than not over the course of the season. So we just approach it like we do every other game. Try to win the game, and that's however that looks. How we do that, we've done a lot of different ways, but for the most part, we don't change our philosophy because playing against James Madison or playing against GW or George Mason or UMBC, whoever we have left, Boston College, every game's hard, every game's important, every game will be one that we have to take very seriously. So we just keep it to the same approach.
T, as we wrap this one up, we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you about some thoughts on your predecessor, Pete Wilk. Of course, passed away earlier this month, age 58, after a courageous battle with brain cancer. What impact did he have on the program, and how you guys looking to honor him?
Yeah, I think, I got to know him since I've been here, obviously a little more, and all the advice and things he gave me when I took over this job. And it's such a tragic loss for our program, for our organization, for our community. You lose a person that's been with the program for 20 plus years and really revived and built the program up to what it was when we took over. And he had great people, great kids. Like anything, you always want more results, but I think the biggest thing for us is trying to honor him, and just, we know about his competitive spirit, how he fought 15 months and with the cancer diagnosis initially. And this weekend we'll have all our alumni back. We plan on, getting some guys back and talking about that. But I think the impact that he had is one that it's such a large component of our program that, the culture, the environment that he established. We really have just taken over that environment as far as the older players taking care of the younger players, things like that may not be seen on the wins and losses, but I see them every single day, and our coaching staff sees them every day in our program, the fabric of our program, and he'll be remembered for obviously many, many years, all-time winningest coach. So, you have that as well. But just how he impacted the student athletes was really, really, from all the guys that I talked to over the last 3 or 4 weeks about everything. It's really special when you have that as a coach and you hear that, he was doing it the right way, and just, so sad for him, his family. But, we're going to honor him by continuing to play, the best baseball we can. And, who knows what magic we can have down the stretch. But, we're praying for him and thinking of him and his family during this difficult time.
Well said, Coach T. Well, thank you very much, Coach. Again, good luck the rest of the way, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks so much. And for everyone coming out, we got Capital One Ballpark, 6, 4, and 11 a.m. on this weekend. A lot of activities. So come on out, check out the Hoyas and Huskies.
That'll wrap it up for this edition of Behind the Plate with Coach T. Georgetown coming down the stretch in conference play as they look for a Big East tournament berth. Plenty of games left at Capital One Park in Tysons, Virginia, or watch online. Head to guhoyas.com for broadcast links or follow the Hoyas on X or Instagram for the latest information. For Coach T and John Flannery, our producer, I'm Jeremy Huber saying so long in Hoya Saxa.